Hey, what's going on, guys? It's MaxMax24, and if you're a DC fan, you've probably heard that the DCEU is being rebooted into the DCU because James Gunn and Peter Safran have taken over. And that's an exciting time as a DC fan, alright? Yes, the DCEU had some great projects, some great casting. However, it was also a jumbled mess, and it'll be really nice to start fresh and, have a clear, cohesive, creative vision. But because everything's being canceled, because everything's being rebooted, I thought now would be the perfect time to look back at the entire DCEU so far, because it's not done yet. We got about 3-4 projects next year, but all of the DCEU projects so far, and give you my ranking of what I think is the best, what I think is the worst, and what I think was just alright. But before I get into that, please always remember to drop a like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, all it is, all the fun stuff us YouTubers tell you guys to do. Follow me on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I open most on Twitter and TikTok, so no on Facebook, barely ever on Instagram. Follow me, subscribe to me here, and with that, let's rank the entire DCEU. So, for clarification, the DCEU does not include the Batman or the Joker. It'll be all the other projects. The Batman and Joker are off in their own little subsection, and the DCEU is the focus mainly of DC Studios. But the DCEU, it started in 2013, I believe, with Man of Steel, and it was always a little bumpy of a ride, alright? They were trying to rush into things too fast, they were trying to create muddled messes, and then they kind of just threw everything at the wall to see what stuck. There's not really this huge cohesive plot line going on, because there's just a project over here, a project over here, a project over here, nothing really leads to anything, and it just was kind of DC's attempt at capturing the MCU success, but failing greatly. There's also two different trains of thought going on. There was the Snyderverse, and then there was the DCEU after Zack Snyder. And I don't really love the Snyderverse, so you'll see in my rankings, I'm not a huge fan of the Snyderverse, like some people are. I admire you for being a fan. I don't hate you for being a fan. It's just Zack Snyder's not really for me. Later DCEU I thought was really good. However, it was still not going anywhere. There was nothing. There was not really any there was not a cohesive creative vision. And it was very much, what are we going to make with these DC characters next? It was very much, they were planning it right then and there as they were making the movies. They were like, oh, well, we should make an Aquaman movie. Okay, what's it going to lead to? What's the next chapter? I don't know, but we're gonna make them fight Black Adam, and yep, there you go. Okay, but is it leading anything? You know what? Let's do a Black Adam movie next. So it was very much just them planning right then and there, instead of this big cohesive vision that like the MCU has, and that again led to a very muddled mess and a very interesting, weird scenario. Along with that, DC and Warner Bros. Had a bad habit of redoing things. One thing doesn't work, so they're gonna redo it. I mean, we have two versions of Justice League, we have two kind of versions of Suicide Squad. Any plotline they didn't like, they just scrapped and moved on. And then, along with that, the constant will they, won't they with some of these actors. We didn't know who was in certain roles for the longest time. That led to an overall pretty weak franchise. Now, I'm not saying the franchise did not have some redeeming factors. I think there's some movies in here that are better than a lot of MCU films. However, I really wish that DC had nailed down the cinematic universe and this was all cohesive. Enough talk about the greater DCEU, let's get into the ranking. This is from worst to best. I'll be ranking every single project, including the TV shows, of which there are one. But in last place, I'll have to start with Justice League. Not Zack Snyder's Justice League. No. This is the original Justice League, the theatrical version of Justice League. And I'm just going to come out and say it, the DCEU was not ready for this film. Alright, before Justice League, we had Man of Steel, we had Batman vs. Superman, and we had Suicide Squad. Man of Steel set up Superman, Batman v Superman set up Batman and Wonder Woman. The Justice League is made up of more than 3 members. Suicide Squad didn't set up like anybody. There was like brief cameo from like Flash, but that was, we also had Wonder Woman before that. So we also had an entirely solely focused Wonder Woman. The Justice League movie still had to introduce us to who Aquaman was, to who Cyborg was, and to who Flash was. On top of that, it had to tell a cohesive story about this villain, this mother boxes that we've never met before, this villain we've never met before, this plot we don't know. Along with that, they had to undo the big end of Batman v Superman, which was the death of Superman. So they had to revive Superman, they had to introduce us to all these characters, they had to tell us this cohesive plot with this cohesive, scary villain, and they had introduced all of this deep lore, and it didn't work. In a 2-hour movie, it didn't work. On top of that, Zack Snyder made most of this movie. He had to leave the project due to personal reasons, And they brought Joss Whedon in to take everything that Zack Snyder did and cut it to death and change it up. He reshot a bunch of moments, and that led to some very, very jarring emotional switches, right? You had Zack Snyder's darker motif mixed in with Joss Whedon's more colorful motif, and it led to a very confusing movie with emotional whiplash. And also the infamous CGI'd out mustache on Henry Cavill. This film was too much. It was trying too much. It was trying to be too much. And it did not work in the end. What could have been the big theatrical appearance of some of comic books' most iconic heroes teaming up for the first time on the big screen was a pile of trash that I really don't want to watch again. Next up, I would say Wonder Woman 1984. All right, the first Wonder Woman was a great, great movie, and I was super excited for Wonder Woman 1984. This is so far technically really the only sequel in the DCEU. A lot of them are just reimagining or reboots or continuations, but soft reboots. This one's really the only sequel, and it's one of the worst DCEU movies we've gotten. Again, the first Wonder Woman was great, and I was super excited to see what Patty Jenkins and what Gal Gadot would do next. And they got some great actors in here, like Pedro Pascal was gonna be a big part of this film. And I was excited. I was like, okay, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? To me, this felt very much like a corny, classic superhero movie from like the 70s, 80s, 60s, whenever those corny superhero movies are coming out. And it does not belong nowadays. It just doesn't work nowadays. On top of that, there is a very problematic plot in here. I mean, the entire story is this man is granting wishes for people. He's granting everybody wishes. He grants Wonder Woman a wish to bring back her love, Steve Trevor, I believe that was his name. Yes. And he does not come back. No, he's inhabiting this person against his will, and that leads to a very I don't even understand. And then the entire end of the film, everybody miraculously gives up wishes. Like that wouldn't happen. And it's just a very unrealistic by comic book standards, and comic book movies aren't realistic to begin with. But this one, we just took it to the next level. On top of that, it was a very corny film. On top of that, it just wasn't good. It wasn't good. There wasn't really anything redeeming about this film. Sure, there was like one or two scenes that I'm like, okay, that's cool. Like her flying, okay, cool, that's cool. You know, the beginning, sure, cool. But overall, the plot was weak, the villain was weak, and it just was also just kind of problematic. Next up, I would say Suicide Squad 2016, all right? Now, I enjoy bits and pieces of this movie. I think it was well casted for the most part. And I think a lot of it works. But a lot of it also doesn't work, and it leads to a pretty weak experience, all right? Now, this movie was another studio intervention, classic DC story. David Ayer made his movie. He made this interesting movie that we'll probably never see. Then the first trailer came out, and it was like to Queen, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, this movie looks like fun. It looks like the Guardians of the Galaxy version of DC. It looks like it could be an interesting story. So DC, Warner Brothers made the executive decision, the genius decision, to hire the trailer company to come and recut the entire film. Why? I didn't think trailer companies were really that good at editing films. I thought they were good at editing trailers, but who am I to critique them? Because, you know, maybe they're really great at their job. But they weren't really great at their job. Spoiler alert, they weren't. This movie had a lot that could have worked. All right, Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn is great. Will Smith's Deadshot, he's Will Smith, but he's great because I love Will Smith. All right, Captain Boomerang's fun. Rick Flagg's pretty cool. All right, Killer Croc. All of the characters I think are well casted, but there is very weird, jarring editing going on. There is a very bland storyline because I don't care about Enchantress. I don't care about her doing her little dances. And just the introduction to a lot of these characters is very weird too. I mean, it's a weird movie. It's a very weird movie because again, I enjoy parts of it, but I'm also aware that it's not a good movie. All right, it's just not. I don't know. Some people absolutely love this movie, but to me, it felt like kind of like a live action music video with not a lot of substance to it. Next up, I would put Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, all right? This movie should be a lot higher. It should. Batman fighting Superman, I should be amazed. I should be sitting in my seat. I should be blown away. But the DCEU was not ready for this type of film, and it was trying too much yet again. That was the biggest fault with the Snyderverse to me, is that he was and DC and Warner Brothers were rushing into plot lines to try to beat Marvel, to try to get to Marvel's level, to try to copy what Marvel's doing, but they weren't ready. Batman v Superman's core conflict of Batman seeing Superman and being like, he needs to be taken out because of all the destruction he did in Man of Steel. That could have been interesting. You could have left it there. However, then you decide, no, we're not going to leave it there. We're going to throw in Lex Luthor, a really bad Lex Luthor, I might add. Jesse Eisenberg does not play Lex Luthor here. He's playing a caricature of Lex Luthor. He is more like playing the Joker. You throw him in here as this villain who's kind of, manipulating them. But you don't end there. No. You also throw in Wonder Woman in here for some reason. She's got to be in here. Then you're going to spend some of the time with Batman being like setting up the Justice League. Hey, here's a video file of Aquaman. Here's a video file of Flash. In a movie that's supposed to be centrally focused on Batman fighting Superman. And then you're going to throw in a bunch of these weird dream sequences that Batman's going through. And you're not done there. No, you're going to have the Flash appear at some point and yell at something at him. Oh, but you're not done there. No. You're going to have Lex Luthor break into the ship that, from Man of Steel, take the body of Zod and create Doomsday, and you're not done there. You still have Batman's fighting Superman, but you're gonna have it end with this Martha name thing for some reason, and you're not done there. You're gonna have Doomsday fight Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman for some reason, and then you're gonna kill off Superman in his second movie. This is the second movie of the DCEU, and you're gonna do all of this in 2.5 to 3 hours. What? Why? That is way too much, alright? This was DC's way of trying to capture Civil War. Now, a lot of people are being like, well, this was announced before Civil War. Captain America 3 was going to be Serpent Society. That was a joke title from the beginning, alright? From the minute they announced it, they literally changed it to Civil War by the end of that same exact announcement. So it was never going to be Serpent Society. But this was supposed to be a DC Civil War in a franchise that had one movie so far. Maybe two, I don't remember when Suicide Squad came out. But one movie starring one of these characters. And they decided to do all of this stuff in the second outing. And the first outing. The first outing for two of these characters. The second outing for one of these characters. The second movie. Your franchise is not ready for this. We haven't even had the big team-up movie. And then you decide, we have to undo this, because then you have to spend half of the team-up movie undoing a lot of this, because you got to get everyone in line for the team-up movie. It just didn't make sense. The franchise wasn't ready for it, and I just don't like it. Next up, I would say Black Adam, or really just The Rock, but in DC. Alright? Black Adam's the latest DCEU project. And it's not a Black Adam movie. It's really not. It's The Rock. He's just playing The Rock. He's trying to be this superpowered individual. However, I enjoy The Rock mostly, and I think what really elevates this movie is the Justice Society of America. Alright? They are fun. All those characters are fun. Hawkman's fun. Dr. Fate is fun. And then the other two that are there. They're all fun to watch, and they have cool powers, and seeing them fight Black Adam is fun. But that's just all this movie is. It doesn't go past that. It's not this super big, deep superhero movie. It's not breaking any new ground. It's not changing the hierarchy of power in the DC universe like The Rock wants to claim. No, we're watching The Rock be The Rock, wearing a Shazam-like outfit, pretending to be this character named Black Adam, even though he's not, and then fighting people and big explosion stuff. That's all it is. It's a blockbuster. It's a popcorn film. I didn't hate it, but I'm never going to be like, this is the best super movie ever. Oh my gosh, The Rock, thank you. Thank you for delivering this. Thank you for changing. I want sequels. I don't need sequels. I just want to see Black Adam fight Shazam. But it's never going to happen. But yeah, if it did it for you, I'm happy for you. It just didn't do it for me as much as some people. Next up, I would put Aquaman. Aquaman is the pinnacle of dumb fun, alright? This movie is carried by Jason Momoa. and it's an Aquaman movie. You're not taking this seriously. It's about a man who swims and talks to fish, all right? But Jason Momoa is so charismatic here. He oozes charisma as this character, and he makes this fun. A lot of the other actors kind of let you down. I don't even forget that William Dafoe's in this movie. But Jason Momoa, this is his film. He carries this film, and it's a fun adventure movie, all right? You're underwater, you're in the desert, you're fighting fish, there's literally a octopus that plays the drums. It's stupid, but I really enjoy it because it doesn't take itself seriously. It's not trying to be dark, it's not trying to be gloomy, it's not trying to be depressing. They're taking Jason Momoa's Aquaman, a character who, again, is weird and wild and funny at his core because he's a man who talks to fish, and they're making this kind of a movie. I'm excited to see a second outing, even if it's going to be the last one, and I enjoy putting this movie on when I just want to have some fun. I think it's more fun than Black Adam, because I think it knows it's trying to be fun. I don't think Black Adam knew it was trying to be fun. Next up, I would put Zack Snyder's Justice League. I enjoy this movie. I still don't think the DCEU was ready for it, alright? Now, this version, some people are like, this is the version we would have gotten. No, we would never have gotten this version in theaters. This is a 4-hour movie. It would have been cut down to 2.5, 3 hours. And it probably could have. There was probably a lot of things that could have been cut out. But I'm just glad that Zack Snyder finally got to fulfill his vision of what he wanted the Justice League to be. And I think this movie overall is a lot better of a movie. I think all the characters get really nice moments. I think it really sets up an interesting dynamic. The end credit scene is... I don't care about the end credit scene, especially since Jared Leto's Joker is back in it. I don't need that. But it sets up a lot of cool elements, and yeah, they all get their moment. I mean, the Flash is running through time, all that is just fantastic. All the development with Cyborg in here is just, he's more than just a caricature, he's an actual character. Alright, Superman, he's back and he has more of a role here. Everything about this movie is just more, it's better, it's better constructed. It's exactly what Zack Snyder wanted to make, just a little bit longer. Now, again, I don't think the DCEU is ready for this because it has to spend a big chunk, like half of it, setting up a lot of these characters, introducing us to all these characters, introducing us to the dynamic, because we don't know any of these characters. It has to spend half of the movie also reviving Superman because they killed off Superman in his second outing. So I don't think we were here. I think that they need more time, the DCEU in general, but I think this film is just a better version of what we got in 2017. Next up, I would say Man of Steel. Now, Man of Steel, I enjoy Man of Steel. I don't think it's the best Superman movie ever made. I don't think it's blowing my mind. I don't think that it's changing the universe of comic book films like some of you act. But it's a fun start to this franchise, alright? Henry Cavill was a great pick for the role. He is the best part of this film. I think for the most part, most DCEU films are like this, alright? These characters are well casted. However, I think the storytelling is just letting them down a lot. Now, I really enjoy Man of Steel, alright? I think it's a good movie, alright? It feels like a Superman movie. However, I don't think Zod's very well developed. I don't think that it's edited very well. It's kind of edited very strangely. We're thrown around a lot, alright? Where he's old, now he's young, he's old, now he's young, he's old now. I think that was really weird. It kind of speeds through some things, and I don't think it necessarily earns its big ending flight moment like some of you think it does. However, that's not to say this movie doesn't have redeeming qualities, because it does. It is a fun Superman movie. Henry Cavill's great in it. I think that the action's really strong here. That's one of the things Zack Snyder does really well, is the action, but I just want more than action. I think the characters are also really interesting for the most part, and I think it's a decently constructed start to this franchise. And I would have loved to see more Henry Cavill besides his death appearance in Batman v Superman and his reviving in Justice League. I wanted more of this, and I was super excited to see a Man of Steel 2. However, I'm also very interested to see what James Gunn will do with Superman now. Next up, I would say Shazam. Shazam is the most Marvel-esque DC film, and it's just fun, alright? Zachary Levi is a great charismatic actor. This movie separates itself from the greater Snyderverse, from the greater DCEU. There is like zero connections here besides some toys and a cameo from the shoulders down. That's it. That's all we get here. And I think it works. This movie separates itself from that. It tells a simple superhero story about a kid who gets superpowers. When he says Shazam, he becomes a superpowered individual, and he has to fight a villain. The villain is very, very forgettable. I don't even remember the villain's name. He has a weird eye, that's all I remember. But just the characters in here are just funny. They're fun to watch. It's kind of like superhero version of Big. And that's all it needed to be. It didn't need to break new ground. It wasn't trying to be more than it was. It was simply the story of Billy Batson and his family getting Shazam powers and saving the world. I'm excited for the second one too. I'm really hoping that it matches this energy, but we'll have to see. Next up, I would say Wonder Woman. I think the first 2/3 of this film are almost flawless. All right, that's a really big claim, but I think the first 2/3 of Wonder Woman are just fantastically done, all right? Gal Gadot was made to play this character. She was so good in this film. The no man's land scene, her discovering the world, all this stuff, her romance with Steve Trevor, it was all super well constructed. I think the movie kind of loses itself in the third act, especially with the big CGI villain at the end. I think what could have been a really interesting setup for, because if you haven't watched it, spoiler alert, but it ends with her, she kills this one guy, and then she sees that the war is not ending, and there's not always this big villain controlling the world, but then it's revealed, Ares reveals himself to be a different character altogether, and there's a big CGI fight. I think the movie would have worked a lot better if Ares wasn't actually involved, and if this actually was a Wonder Woman revelation of, she can't solve everything, and oh my gosh, there wasn't this big bad. It's just sometimes humanity is humanity. I think that would have led to a more interesting finale, and I think that's what it was kind of building to, of just humans being humans, but then it kind of 180'd at the end with the Ares reveal, and I think that hurt the rest of the film. However, I still think the first 2/3 of this film are fantastic. It's such a good time. If it wasn't, it's just that third act kind of lets it down a little bit. Next up, I would say Peacemaker Season 1. This is the only TV show in the DCEU, because things like Doom Patrol Titans, the Arrowverse, they're not connected to the DCEU at all, maybe except for through the multiverse. But Peacemaker Season 1 is firmly set in the DCEU, and this show was such a surprise to me, all right? I really liked James Gunn's Suicide Squad, but when he announced that he was making a Peacemaker show, I was like, that's a weird decision. I don't know. I mean, John Cena's cool and all, but is he going to be able to lead a show? And boy, did he surprise me, all right? John Cena is at the top of his game here. He's pulling acting out of somewhere. I didn't even know he had that capability. And the show is super well constructed and super enjoyable to watch. All of the side characters are fun. Peacemaker is fun. The story's not half bad, and the exploration of this character was something I never thought we would have, this big in-depth exploration of such a weird character like Peacemaker, right? He's not a Superman. He's not a Batman. He's Peacemaker. Who knows who Peacemaker is? Nobody. But here, James Gunn does him justice, and just so good. So good. If you have not watched Peacemaker, I'd highly recommend it, just for that intro alone. Just for the intro alone. Now, sure, some of the jokes sometimes go a little bit too long, but overall, it's a fantastic production. Next up, I would say Birds of Prey. Birds of Prey to me is criminally underrated. It came out at the beginning of COVID. Not a lot of people went and watched it. Not a lot of people supported it. A lot of people just skipped out on it. And I don't think it deserved that, all right? A lot of what people liked in James Gunn's Suicide Squad was started here. It was, because just the colorful nature of Harley Quinn, what she sees, all her visions, just the editing style, everything is here too. Ewan McGregor does a great job as Black Mask, even if he's not super connected to this comic book counterpart. Harley Quinn is she's as great as ever. And the Birds of Prey are also very interesting to watch. This movie's just got some great action set pieces. It's very colorful, it's very unique, and it's just fun, all right? I really enjoy Birds of Prey. It should have had a shorter title, yes. But it's, I think, a very good follow-up to, and it takes the best parts of the original Suicide Squad and puts her at the center of attention. And that's just, I think it works. And now some people are upset about the Cassandra Cain character. Sure, okay. she's a little different from, very different from the comic book counterpart, but that doesn't ruin the movie. To me, that doesn't ruin the movie. I mean, this is a movie that has Harley Quinn go on a coke-fueled rampage throughout a police station. It's that kind of wild energy, and it's a great watch from beginning to end. But then my favorite DCEU project is probably The Suicide Squad. This is the latest Suicide Squad, and this movie was such a delight. It was. All right, I was a little worried because Suicide Squad 2016 was definitely a letdown, and I was like, we're doing this again, DC? We're doing this again? But oh boy, did James Gunn deliver. Did he deliver? All right, he got fired from Marvel because of old tweets, only to get hired by DC to work on a Suicide Squad movie. And then Marvel was like, no, we want him back. So they hired him, and now look at him. He's the head of DC. This man has definitely gone through a lot of change over the last couple of years. And the Suicide Squad was probably one of my favorite movies he's made, all right? He's just allowed to go absolutely wild here. He's given an R rating. He's given a budget, whatever he wants. He's kind of like a blank check, and he made this filled with so many great characters, all right? So many great characters. Peacemaker, Ratcatcher, Rick Flag, Harley Quinn. We got Killer Croc. We got, not Killer Croc, we got King Shark, we got Polka Dot Man, we got all of the people at the beach. He takes some of the weirdest and most unknown DC characters and throws them in this movie. That's what he specializes in. He did that with Marvel too. He took the very unknown Guardians of the Galaxy team, made a great movie about them. He took some very unknown DC villains, made a great movie about them. That's what he does. That's what he specializes in, and I'm excited to see what he does next. And this movie, oh my gosh. I mean, if you skipped out on this one, why? Tell me why. If you don't like this one, I need to understand, because I think this is probably one of the best DC films in a long time. It's wild, it's crazy, it's well casted, it's well edited, it's got a great story, and it's even got Starro, alright? The first Justice League villain is here in all of his glory, and I never thought that would work, and it worked. Great movie. Fantastic. But yeah, that is all my DCEU rankings. We got Justice League, then Wonder Woman 1984, Suicide Squad 2016, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice, Black Adam, Aquaman, Zack Snyder's Justice League, Man of Steel, Shazam, Wonder Woman, Peacemaker, Birds of Prey, and then the Suicide Squad. That is my ranking. Let me know your ranking in the comments below. Again, the Batman and Joker are not included because they are not part of the DCEU. I'm going to miss the DCEU because even though it was a very jumbled mess, it had some good highlights in it, alright? Especially the actors. Most of the actors, besides like Jared Leto, were well casted, and I'm going to miss that. But next year, the DCEU will finally come to an end with The Flash, Aquaman 2, and Shazam 2, and maybe Blue Beetle if that's connected, unless that's part of the new DCU. I'm excited for DC's future. I'm going to miss DC's past, but, you know, a new creative vision might lead to a much better franchise overall. I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, tell your friends, and all the ones of us to tell you guys to do from social media, and I hope to see you in the next video.